everyone. If you haven't signed up already, please make sure you signed up. And this meeting is now called to order. I'm Mayor Beverly H. Burks, and this is the June 4th Clarkston City Council meeting. And at this time, I'll do roll call. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Present.
Councilman Carroll.
Present.
Councilwoman Hood.
Present.
Councilwoman Bell.
Present.
And Councilman Perkins. And I recognize our interim city manager, Tammy Sadler-Jones, online. And we also have our planning and economic director online as well, Lisa Cameron. Thank you both for being online and coming through the meeting. At this time, I will entertain any changes to the agenda. Yes, Councilman Perkins.
So I move that we remove item 8D, which is a hearing to receive evidence and consider Brockett Point LLC's appeal of denial of its application for a license to operate a park for hire / valet parking business at 1353 J Brockett Road, and replace item 8D with a new item 8D, which is to consider a resolution by the Clarkston City Council to establish a construction build-out budget for the new city administrative space to be located at 736 Park North.
Okay. So there's, yes.
Madam Mayor, can you please confirm for the record that the reason we're removing that appeal hearing is because the appellant wrote in and said they're withdrawing their appeal. They don't want to go forward.
Okay.
Yes, if you need a yes.
Okay. So let me pause this right now. So we are removing item 8D because the appellate withdrew his hearing.
Exactly.
Okay. And we're adding a new one, which is to have the council to consider establishing a budget for the contract to build out a budget in the city administrative space located at 736 Park North. Okay. Is any discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do you need a second? Or did you get second?
I thought,
Nope.
oh, is there a second? Sorry.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to executive terms of presentation and executive administrative business, and to approve the following meeting minutes. Item A, which is 04/30/2024 City Council Work Session meeting minutes. Item B, which is 05/07/2024 City Council meeting minutes, and C, which is 05/16/2024 special called meeting minutes. Is there a motion for this item?
I move to approve the minutes of City Council meeting 5/7/2024 and the meeting minutes for work session 4/30/24
And the special call.
What about a special call?
and 5/16/2024.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to approve the following meeting minutes for item A, which is 04/30/2024 City Council Work Session meeting minutes. Item B, which is 05/07/2024 City Council meeting minutes, and C, which is 05/16/2024 special called meeting minutes. Is there any discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that has passed. We'll move to the planning and economic development report. Ms. Cameron, tell me you're in San Francisco looking at that background.
I wish that would be lovely. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and honorable City Council members. How are you doing this afternoon?
Great, thank you.
I have a few things to report on tonight. We did receive a variance, some variance applications. On June the 18th at 7:30 p.m., the Planning and Zoning Board will be hearing variances for a cottage development on Jolly Street. The meeting will be held, of course, in the chamber at 3921 Church Street, and you'll have more information that will be coming. Also wanted to report that Jacob Bowie, our Economic Development Coordinator, we did some research, looked at the Dollar Tree, who is the parent of Family Dollar stores, did research on their corporate site and saw that they had reported stores closing as early as March 2024. We have not found those exact stores in their press release. However, a number of states have been identified, and we don't like to actually, speak things that we don't have proof of from the corporate office. However, media has put several different states out, and as far as we know, Clarkston is not one of those areas that stores would be closing. Also, I found out in a meeting with Councilwoman Hood and the city manager. She indicated to us that the council did not receive a copy of the adopted planning and zoning ordinance, or the ordinance, and so I made extra copies. I made sure that each council member should have a copy. If you haven't picked up your mail, if you don't have a copy, it's because it's probably in your mailbox. But also, I made enough print tools, the commission, the boards, and also our DDA members, so that everyone would have that adopted copy. Also, just want to say that I'm in a placemaking conference here in Baltimore, and have met a lot of different people from different jurisdictions, and just a lot of great opportunities and events and ideas that they're sharing. And so I hope to bring a lot of good information back to the city as we move forward in bringing together our culture and arts program. And I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, thank you, Ms. Cameron. We'll move to the interim city manager's report. Ms. Jones?
Thank you, Mayor Burks. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for understanding. I am out of state visiting my mother-in-law and my in-laws, so it's been a pleasure to be able to join you virtually. The announcements that I have is that I wanted to thank all of our members of the public who came out to support our pool opening. It was on Thursday, May 23rd. We had over 600 individuals to come through the pool gates. We want to thank our Parks and Recreation Manager, Michael Duncan, for his guidance in planning and implementing that special event. We also want to thank our Public Works staff, Assistant Public Works Director Marcus Seaton, and all of our Public Works employees. They did the barbecuing, and it was all great. The food was wonderful: hot dogs, hamburgers, chips, and drinks for the children and the adults. I also want to thank our Communications Manager, Ratanja Burdette, for all of the publicizing and helping us to get the word out. Ms. Keisha Dixon in my office, and just all of our city staff that came out to assist us with that event. So we couldn't have done it without them. So we do want to say thank you to all of them. I did want to remind the public that June the 15th is going to be an exciting day in the city of Clarkston. We have our food giveaway event that's going to be on June the 15th at 8 a.m. We encourage you to get there early, get in line. We have 300 boxes of food that we're going to be giving away. We hopefully will have that particular portion of the day wrapped up between 9 and 9:30, because we have our Juneteenth celebration that starts at 10 a.m. Our communications manager, if you haven't had a chance to see our billboard, has been updated with our Juneteenth advertisement. So we want to thank Ratanja. Also, if you are interested in being a vendor, we encourage you to reach out to our staff, Yolanda McGee or Jacob Bowie. So again, June the 15th is going to be a great day in the city of Clarkston, and we encourage you to come out, tell your family, tell your friends. We want to have a big turnout for this year. Also, city offices will be closed on Wednesday, June the 19th. We will, in observance of Juneteenth holiday, and we will reopen on June the 20th. I wanted to remind the council, we do have the millage rate public hearings that are coming up on June the 18th at 10 a.m. and at 6:30 p.m. and also on June the 27th at 6:30 p.m. So we encourage you to check out our city website for more information. And that's all I have at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you again. And now we'll have the city attorney.
No report this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move on to council remarks, starting with Vice Mayor Johnson.
I have nothing to report, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and then we'll have Councilman Carroll.
We had a good housing infrastructure committee meeting earlier this month. Other than that, I don't have anything to report.
Okay. Councilwoman Hood.
Yes, no report.
Okay, and Councilwoman Bell.
So we had a great and robust public safety and legal SAC meeting. So thanks for all the individuals in the community that were appointed and want to serve, and then the robust discussion. Also sat in with the community development SAC meeting, which was also great, and we talked about some of the issues that we want to tackle. And then I was reelected to Local Progress Executive Board for Black Caucus members on a national level, and then had a discussion and thanked the President of the United States for scaling up ARPA funds and the impact that it's had in the city of Clarkston. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Perkins.
It's hard to follow that, but we had a productive month as well. I attended the Clarkston Greenway Project Advisory Group meeting, so I'm really ecstatic with the progress that they've made on that as we were all updated during our work session last week. Also attended the Clarkston Business Association's meeting where we talked a little bit about just the different functions of the city and ways to get engaged and who to go to with what issues, hopefully creating some clarity there for business owners. Also in the same vein, I was able to attend a civic engagement training with Refugee Women's Network, where we also talked about just the different functions of local government and how individuals could get involved and you know, who to go to with what issues and how to build community consensus in a way that, you know, they can get their needs and desires heard. Also attended Coffee with a Cop on May 7th, Refuge Coffee, and also attended the Public Safety and Legal Committee meeting, which was also great, and had a similar meeting with the first Community Development and Civic Innovation Committee. Meeting of the year where we brought in 3 new members, Mr. Nick Crawford, Mr. Laura Norm, and Mr. Joseph Yon. So welcome. We love when our citizens can get involved, and committees are a great way to do it. So if you're looking for a way to get involved in the community, I encourage you to apply. It's a great opportunity there. And then finally, on May 30th, attended the Council for Quality Growth meet and greet. Was able to connect with other council members from neighboring cities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll do the mayor's report. So on the 17th, I did the Coffee with the Cop. And that's also when we met with Commissioner Terry, along with myself, Councilman Perkins, about the potential for the mural project under the overpass at Indian Creek between Church and Ponce. I attended the Refugee Women's Network where they did their civic engagement, so I participated with that. I also participated with the Spring Mama meeting, which is the Metro Atlanta Mayors Association. I participated with the District 4 judges meeting where we had the judges in the area to come out, and also Councilwoman Bell was there as well for that one. Yeah, you were there? Yeah. I'll make sure I remember. Yep. And attended that. I also attended the Eritrean American graduation. So they celebrated all of the students who were graduating this year. And then I recently was selected to be a part of ARC's Regional Leadership Institute. So I'm very excited to participate with that. And so that is my report. So with that, we'll close out and talk about number 5, which is public comments. Any member of the public may address the council during the time allotted for public comments. Each attendee will be allowed 3 minutes for comments at the discretion of the presiding officer. The public comment period will be limited to 40 minutes, and it is not a time for dialogue. If your public comment contains a series of questions, please submit these to the city clerk in writing. This will facilitate follow-up by the council or staff. The city council desires to allow an opportunity for a public comment. However, the business of the city must proceed in an orderly, timely manner. And with that, Ms. Melissa, who do we have signed up?
We have Robert Winfrey.
Madam Mayor, Council, and others. I'm Robert Winfrey. I live at 3834 Norman Road. I've been a resident of Clarkston for 24 years. I've been in construction since I was 12 years old. If I see December 2nd, I'll be 80 years old. I have some friends that are in construction, and I invited them out. Where you're going to renovate a building, where you have land on the other side of that house. You could go in there and clear that land, asphalt it, and put a nice double or triple wide office trailer. DeKalb County has one over here on Memorial Drive. And that's what they got, that office space. It's a nice office. I've been in it. You would also have plenty of parking over there. But I think if some way you could revisit before you spend all this money on renovating somebody else's property, and if when the lease is up, they say go, you got to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else signed up?
Yes, Reverend Philip.
No? Okay, not now.
I don't have anybody.
Okay.
Is there anybody online?
Is there anybody online? No? Okay. With that being said, going once, going twice, we will close public comments at this time. Thank you all. So we'll go ahead and close public comments, and we'll go to old business, which is item A, to consider overriding the mayor's veto of the approval of the lease agreement with G&I X Industrial GA LLC for the lease of approximately 27,510 square feet of office space at the property known as 736 Park North for use as city administrative space for a term of 62 months. And so, council, if somebody want to go ahead and think we're good, do the override.
Have a motion.
Sure, yes.
I move that we override the mayor's veto of the approval of lease agreement with G&I X Industrial GA LLC for the lease of approximately 27,510 square feet of office space at the property known as 736 Park North for use as city administrative space for a term of 62 months.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to consider overriding the mayor's veto of the approval of the lease agreement with G&I X Industrial GA LLC for the lease of approximately 27,510 square feet of office space at the property known as 736 Park North for use as city administrative space for a term of 62 months. You ready for the question? Any discussion? Ready for the question?
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm not, I have a copy of the cost sheet, and I want to be certain that it is the most current one.
Okay.
It's not dated, so I'm not sure how I find out which is the most current one.
So the one, it may be the one that you have, does it have May 7th in the upper corner, upper left corner, upper left?
It says 2024 budget line items related to office move.
Is there anything above yours on the top, or did it get cut
I don't
off?
see it, but that doesn't mean it didn't print.
Okay.
So, are there any changes?
Yeah, it's the same one. No, it's the same one. It's the same one.
Okay. I want to make sure that the amount of money that we've been talking about relative to the build-out, and that is related to actually item B, which is somewhat related. I want to make sure that that amount is in one of these column totals.
Okay, and it is, but I will make sure in terms of I know Mr. Defnall is online. Can you confirm that for us, please? Or the city manager, whichever.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to just make sure that when we had our special call meeting, I gave out a copy, and I do want to make sure that the one that you have is the one that Councilmember Hood is asking me about. Is that from the special call meeting, Councilmember Hood?
She printed it out, so. But you gave us one, and then you emailed us one, so.
Yeah, this
we-
is the
Yeah.
yellow and blue, yellow and green one that we emailed, right?
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
yeah. I guess the bottom line is the numbers, so we can make sure it's the same one.
Yeah, that's one.
Yes, the most recent copy that I handed out is the estimated numbers that were provided to you.
Thank you. Yes, this appears to be the same one. Thank you. So
Okay.
where is the 108,000 that would be one of the contracts for the build-out? Is that in one of these one-time expenses?
So-
Yes, it should be. Let me make sure that I'm looking at the same thing that you're looking at. Just a minute.
And I know that you're looking at the overall budget, Councilwoman Hood, but I just want to make sure for this particular item is with the lease. But I understand you want to talk about the overall budget. I got you. Okay.
Now, can you tell me can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first
Yes.
time.
As related to the lease, and I'm bringing this up before I vote for or against the lease, I just wanted to make sure that the cost referenced in item B for Pirani at 108,000, is that, where is that in the budget estimate on this sheet? And
It should be listed under the construction, estimated construction.
that's the 275,000?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm not there to see, which column are you in?
I'm
Trying to
looking
make
at
sure that I'm following
one-time
you.
estimated expense of fiscal year 2024.
Is that the very first row?
First column, yes. And I'm looking under the description, and it describes the work that's to be done.
Right.
Right, and for 107,859,
107,859, what is that?
And that should be the contract.
yeah, that's the contract for Pariani.
So instead of what we have on our document, it says 108,000. But in this document, it's 107,959.
Where-
Go ahead.
where is that at?
Yeah, where do you see 107?
I don't see 107.
I think I got an older one. I'm looking at an older one. I had one that had the 107. Councilwoman Bell?
So just, Tammy, I can tell you what we're looking at. So just trying to figure out what this big number is. It's 275,000 number. Look on the ARPA funds to the left and then go over on that row on the external building signage. There's a 2 asterisks that says construction renovation to include. Is that where you're saying that some of this money was the contract, or was it not added because it was separate?
Make sure that I got my right paperwork here. Until I find, hey, Ms. Dixon, can you do me a favor and go up and start explaining? I want to make sure that I got the right thing. But remember, I had to travel to get here, so I didn't bring everything to put it in my suitcase. So I'm sorry about that. Let me grab it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think what Councilmember Hood is looking at is the second version. So initially, when we came before Council, we had a price of $108,000 for the redesign, redevelopment contract, along with an estimated $500,000 for construction costs. We know that it's not going to cost that much. It was just given an estimated number. After the meeting, we were asked to be more realistic and pare it down. And so the 108 was removed because initially there was not going to be a redesign. And so it wouldn't have cost as much. So we estimated that based on what we may have to submit to the county, we may need about $20,000, and we took the $500,000 down to $275,000. We didn't update that document for this meeting, which if you go back to it, the changes would be that it's 108 for the Prioni redesign, and then we had that estimated amount of 275, leaving it there. But again, the budget would be, for construction, would be dependent upon what you guys said and say not to exceed. So that's where there were 2 different versions of the sheet, and if Councilmember Hood, if you have one that says 20,000, that's the one that we were asked to do when we were considering not doing carpet, painting, all of that, and not putting the walls up, not doing the walls, only doing the stuff for the police department. So the actual cost is the 108 because we're going to have the redesign and submit it to the county based on what we're trying to do.
Okay, and I think Councilwoman Hood's question is, so the version that she has
Which is
does not have the 108.
Does it have the 20,000 on it, Councilmember Hood?
what column would that be in?
Do you mind if I come and look at the sheet?
It's the fee for
It's
drawing.
moving.
The fee
Yes,
for drawing,
Mayor.
the very first
Yeah.
one.
It's on there.
It's on there?
Mayor, because the one that I have it has May 16th at the very top. That's the latest version that was given to you all.
Right, that's what we're looking at.
It
That's the
actually
same one.
has 275,000.
Okay.
So,
No, no, no.
it's-
That's
Sorry.
This is right.
right,
So
but
it
there
has
is this
275.
108. Okay,
And then instead of 108,000 for the Pirani contract, it's 20,000. And if you could point out to me, take a look at this and show there are a couple of entries that are 20,000. Basically what I'm trying to do is make sure that everything that was vetoed is
Has nothing to do
on
with that.
this
It has
final.
nothing to do with that.
That's what
Nothing.
that, so
It
it's
has
there,
nothing to
it's
do
there.
Well, it does to me.
So, okay, we have it then.
Okay,
So you see that?
I see where it was 108 and now it's 20. And then I asked the same thing about the 126,000 for the Southern Computer Warehouse, Inc. Where on this sheet would I find that?
Yeah, go ahead. And so is that,
Can you show
from-
her?
Cameras.
are you
that
just
to her.
trying to make sure before you vote on the
Yes.
lease?
That's
That-
the security cameras, that's the 125, 554.
Right,
She just want to see it on that.
she just want to
proposed
see it.
budget.
I just want to make sure, because we've had lots of toing and froing.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that everything that we are seeing here is on here.
Okay, so we've toed and froed, are we good now? You got you see all the expenses?
All right.
Okay, good, okay, all right, thank you. So with that, you ready for the question? All in favor to override the mayor's veto of the approval of the lease agreement with G&I X Industrial GA LLC for the lease of approximately 27,510 square feet of office space at the property known as 736 Park North for use as city administrative space for a term of 62 minutes to 2 months. Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and that's fine. And so we'll move on to the next item, which is item B, to consider overriding the mayor's veto of the approval of the contract with Pirani Construction, a Georgia statewide contract number 99999 SPD 52020090100020, and the Gordian Construction contract number GAA 07040820-PAR under Sourcewell contract number for the design work to renovate some areas within the building located at 736 Park North for use as city administrative space for a term of 6 months in an amount not to exceed $108,000. So can I get a motion for this?
Madam Mayor, I have a motion.
Yes, Councilman Perkins.
I move that we override the mayor's veto of the approval of the contract with Pirani Construction Incorporated, a Georgia statewide contract number 99999-SPD-5202009010-0020, and the Gordian Construction contract number GA-A07-040820-PAR under the Sourcewell contract number for the design work to renovate some areas within the building located at 736 Park North for use as city administrative space for a term of 6 months in an amount not to exceed $108,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to consider overriding the mayor's veto the approval of the contract with Pirani Construction, a Georgia statewide contract number 99999 SPD 5202009010-0020, and the Gordian Construction contract number Georgia A07040820-PAR under Sourcewell contract number for the design work to renovate some areas with the building located at 736 Park North for use as city administrative space for a period of 6 months in an amount not to exceed $108,000. Yes, Councilwoman Hood.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't we just told that number is now 20,000?
So, Ms. Dixon, why don't you come up and make sure we're clear?
No, ma'am. Councilwoman Hood, the question, the 20,000 and the 108 came from when we initially put it on the agenda. It was approved, and then when there was the when there was the veto, we were asked to try to pare down the expenses, so that 20,000 was an estimated amount. So if you look at the sheet that you have in front of you, I actually struck through the 20,000 and wrote the 108, and I will update it and get it emailed to you, but it is 108. No, ma'am, it's not 20,000.
How did it get to be 20,000 from 108, or did it start at 20,000 and was never shown as 108?
No, ma'am, it was originally shown as 108,000. It went down to the 20,000 when we were asked to see if there was something different that we could do, and that different would have been not doing some of the projects inside of the building that we were looking at doing, meaning that we wouldn't have needed to submit anything to the county. We're going to have to submit something to the county for life safety reasons. So it was never 20,000, it was always the 108. That 20,000 wasn't estimated with us, and everything on that sheet, with except where there's a contract attached to it, those are estimated numbers based on what we're saying we think would happen.
Okay. Now, if these totals reflect the 20,000, which I assume they would, since this is a spreadsheet, aren't these numbers then low in that particular regard?
In that particular column, yes, ma'am, but again, it's an estimate.
Well, but it conforms with the not-to-exceed contract amount of 108. So I'm very concerned about these numbers.
Okay. Thank you, and Councilwoman Bell.
So just for a point of clarity, we asked the city admin to give us a lower number before we agreed to vote on a contract. With that, that's what the budget reflects. The budget reflects the lowest estimate it would take for us to do the minimum retrograde to the building space. That was not in concurrent with us voting for the contract because we have voted for it and then it was vetoed, and so now we're back at the table. So the question at hand is, I think for me, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is less about the numbers that are presented on that budget, because we asked them to give us the lowest amount because we hadn't agreed to or voted for either the contracts that are listed before us today after they were vetoed, right? So I guess my thought process is that number is an estimate for the lowest. That is, if we do not tonight vote on either of these contracts, that is how much the city admin will operate within the confines of, because we asked them to give us the lowest number. Am I incorrect, Mr. Dan, Tammy?
So yes, ma'am, you're correct in that we gave an estimated amount based on what we would actually have to submit. The 108 is the number for Pariani for the redesign. They're going to redesign, and as Mr. Pariani, who's here today, explained, we're going to have to submit a set of construction documents. In order to get that information, we have to pay for it. And that's essentially what we're doing here. We're going to do the redesign, and it will be within the budget. If council tells us we can only spend this amount on the construction, that's the amount that when we're doing the redesign, that's what Mr. Pariani will have in mind, and that's how we'll move forward. But we have to have that redesign contract to move forward, even with the things that we need for security for PD.
Okay, here's my concern. We have a document that has old information on it. It says 20,000, and I'm hearing all the reasons why it should say 108. So I'm concerned that we don't have our ducks in a row relative to the estimate and everything else. When we're at a council meeting and we're told this is it, and then I find out that no, where it says 20,000, it really should say 108,000. This does not give me confidence, and I will not vote in support of overriding mayor's veto because I don't have confidence in these numbers.
Okay, and thank you for sharing that. City Manager? Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. As Ms. Dixon mentioned to you, again, these are all estimates, but I do think it would be only fair if we would have Mr. Bhavik Pariani come up and explain what the 108 represents. So, Mary, if you don't mind, if it's okay for him to step up to the podium.
Absolutely, so we'll let him do
I just
that.
want to note, that's not my concern. My concern is the sheet of paper that says 20,000 instead of 108.
So we'll let,
It's nothing to do with Mr. Perron.
and so thank you, Councilwoman Hood. You express quite well your concern, and we I think we all received it, but we're going to make sure Mr. Perroni comes up and clarifies exactly what the numbers are and what you're going to do.
Hello, Mayor, Council. The proposed contract value of 108 is to include 3 phases of design: schematic design, design documents, and construction documents. That would take course over 6 to 8 weeks, multiple meetings of the stakeholders, architects, engineers, contractors, to discuss different issues of fire, life safety, security, floor plans, layout, finishes, the usability of the space, along with when you guys would be able to occupy. Part of that contract would also be to provide you guys with pre-construction services, which would give you guys a very, very, very accurate, close budget on what you can expect to spend for the construction phase of the project. Not that this is specifically important, but from my point of view, I've only ever submitted one proposal with one value for 108 since the conception of this idea.
Okay, so just to make sure we're clear, from what work you're going to do with those 3 phases, you will need to charge the city up to 108,000.
No, ma'am, that will be a fixed contract value of 107,952, whatever the exact value was on that proposal, and that will be a fixed contract value for the deliverable, which would be the construction document set, fully engineered, ready for permitting, that is compliant with all of state of Georgia and, you know, local jurisdictions, code compliant, everything. That's
Okay.
done.
So, just to make sure I'm on the same page with you too, is that the fixed value that you are expecting if we were to approve this again is the $107,959 for the work that you would do
Yes,
with the
ma'am.
3 phases.
That is correct.
That then what would happen is once you did that work in terms of providing the documents that we would need, construction documents, that would be based on, let's say that we gave you a budget of $375,000 of what we're willing to spend to do the actual construction work. Is that correct?
Yes, so if you said, you know, the number is 375, the number is 275, whatever number you guys are comfortable with in terms of the spend for construction itself, during the design phase, what we would do is we'd work with the cost engineers, the structural engineers, all the different architects, and make sure that what we're designing meets that cost value and does not exceed that budgeted value. And if at any point the requests from the city are above that cost budget, we will say, hey guys, let's pull this back. This is not going to mesh with the budget. And we'll know that earlier than later. And the idea is that the city can protect itself in terms of future cost overruns by getting all of the information up front and doing the due diligence to ensure that this doesn't come back at some crazy number that you guys can't swallow, and then you've already signed the lease and now you have to deal with the ramifications of that. So this is more of, we'll get the design done, we get all the information about what it's actually going to cost in real dollars and cents, the real timelines, and then from there you guys can make an informed decision about what the next step is for your city and the best thing for your people.
Okay. Yes, Councilwoman Bell.
Okay, so, Stephen, I have a question. I just want to make sure I'm clear about my thinking, okay? So, what I'm hearing, and thank you, Mr. Parker, the budget that's in question would not have these numbers on it because we had not gotten into an agreement after the override if we were going to move to have those. The budget in question only has the lowest amount because that's what we requested. So that shouldn't even be a factor because this is separate, right? Like us voting on the contract is completely separate from the budget that we requested to move into this lease agreement because we asked for the smallest amount of number. And so if we don't vote for it, then we'll still go back to that budget. But if we do vote for it, this is in addition to, and then the budget would need to be updated.
Well, I'm not very familiar with the budget document that y'all have been discussing because that's sort of outside of my area.
Yeah.
But what you just described sounds right to me from what I've been hearing tonight. And I think that Mr. Pariani did a great job of explaining the relationship between the design phase and the construction phase in terms of cost. And we added an agenda item to the end of this meeting for the council to establish that budget so that the city manager will know when working with the Pariani group exactly how much there is to spend at the max so that the plans produce something that can be constructed for the amount that's been allocated by the council. But I think you were asking about a budget document that had lower numbers, and I think it's safe to say at this point that is it's void or it's an alternative. I think void is actually a better word because what we heard is that the idea of doing this project without stamped drawings is not viable.
Correct.
It's going to be a public place.
That helpful at all?
Okay. Councilman Perkins?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Stephen, I got another question for you. I'm going to make you earn your keep today.
Sure.
Another thing, just to make sure I understand, is my understanding is we actually have a deadline in the lease agreement as well in terms of how long we have to submit plans for any kind of upgrades. Am I correct in that?
That's right, and one of the things I heard, I was thinking about that when Mr. Pariani spoke. He said 6 to 8 weeks to do his work. In the lease agreement, we have 60 days, so 8 weeks, to turn over the plans to the landlord for their approval, which is required in order to actually do the build-out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes,
I just have
Councilman.
a quick comment. So
Sure.
I abstained the last time, but now a combination of Mr. Priarni's explanation, the fact that we are going to put a cap on the overall spend, and the fact that we have a decreased estimate definitely reassures me that I had a sticker shock, I think, when I saw the $800,000 number. But I feel better about where we are right now, so I'm
Okay.
prepared to vote to override.
Okay, good. All right. Any other questions? All right, I think people got additional information, and we're glad that you could come and do those wonderful explanations for us. Thank you. So with that, are we ready for the question? All in favor to approve the override of the mayor's veto of the approval of the contract with Pirani Construction, a Georgia statewide contract number 99999 SPD 5202000 to 9010020, and the Gordian Construction contract, Georgia contract number Georgia or GA A07040820-PAR under Sourcewell contract number for the design work to renovate some areas within the building located at 736 Park North for the use as city administrative space for a term of 6 months in an amount not to exceed $108,000. Say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed say nay. Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item, which is C. To consider overriding the mayor's veto of the approval of the contract with Southern Computer Warehouse SCW Inc., a Georgia statewide contract number 99999-SD000172-014 to provide a security system for the new proposed city administrative space located at 736 Park North for a term of 6 months in an amount not to exceed $126,000. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to override the mayor's veto of the approval of the contract with Southern Computer Warehouse, Inc., SCW Inc., a Georgia statewide contract number 999-SD-00000172-014 to provide a security system for the new proposed city administrative space located at 736 Park North for a term of 6 months in the amount not to exceed $126,000.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to consider overriding the mayor's veto of the approval of the contract with Southern Computer Warehouse, Inc., SCW, Inc., a Georgia statewide contract number 999-SD-00000172-014 to provide a security system for that proposed city, for the new proposed city administrative space located at 736 Park North for a term of 6 months and the amount not to exceed $126,000. Is there any discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, good. Thank you all, and thank you again for the information. I'm glad we can move forward, and we're going to be in a new building in a couple of months. With that, we're going to move on to consent items. And the consent agenda is when the council meets at the work session, and if we agree that there's no further deliberation, then we will put these on consent agenda so that all we have to do is vote for these items at one time. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the items on consent agenda, and I will need whoever is making the motion to read each item for the city clerk. Thank you. Oh, Councilman Carroll. He kind of beat you.
It's too late. You go for it.
He got it.
I move that we approve the consent agenda of items 7A through F. 7A, to consider for approval ordinance number 494 to amend the city charter to authorize the city manager to purchase certain goods and services, enter into certain contracts on behalf of the city. 7B, to consider for approval ordinance number 495 to amend the chapter 2 of the city code regarding administration and delegate to the city manager authority to purchase certain goods and services, enter into contracts on behalf of the city, subject to certain conditions and limitations. 7C, to consider for approval resolution authorizing staff professionals to proceed with the issuance of general obligation sales tax bonds. 7D, to consider for approval of an agreement with Atlanta United Football Club to utilize Milan Park's upper fields to hold 8 free soccer clinics for the youth community of Clarkston at no cost to the city. 7E, to consider for approval an agreement for services between the City of Clarkston and BidNet Direct as the online bid solicitation host website at no cost to the city. And 7F, to consider for approval of the projects list for the Georgia Department of Transportation Local Roads Assistance Grant Funding Application submittal in the amount of $137,335.85.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, you
Slowing
slow
the ball
today.
tonight.
I'm sorry, Councilman Perkins. Okay, it's been properly moved in second to approve the items in consent agenda from item A through F. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Now we'll go into new business, which is 8A, to consider for approval the selection of the contractor, Construction 57, Inc., to reconstruct the existing asphalt driveway apron located at 1056 Vaughn Street in the amount of $9,850 to be funded out of SPLOST 1. Mr. Kaiser, come on up. Got it on here.
I will not go through the
Okay.
entire description of the history for this, other than the fact that we received 2 quotes for the work, and one bid was $9,000, the other was $18,000, and I would recommend that we move forward with the $9,000 bid.
Okay. Is there a motion for this item?
I have a motion.
Well, Councilwoman Bell beat you. Okay, you want that? Councilwoman, Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thank you. I move to approve the section of the contractor Construction 57 Inc. to reconstruct the existing asphalt driveway apron located at 1056 Vaughn Street in the amount of $9,850 to be funded out of SPLOST 1.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded to consider an approval, the selection of the contract Construction 57 Inc. to reconstruct the existing asphalt driveway apron located at 1056 Vaughn Street in the amount of $9,850 to be funded out of SPLOST 1. Is there any discussion? Okay, you ready for the question? All in favor of to consider the approval of the selection of the contractor Construction 57 Inc. to reconstruct the existing asphalt driveway apron located at 1056 Vaughn Street in the amount of $9,850 to be funded out of SPLOST 1, say aye.
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 Okay, motion passed. Thank you all. And to consider item 8B, which is to consider adopting an ordinance to amend Chapter 10 of the City Code to establish hours for construction, demolition, and excavation activities. And I will have Ms. Cameron to please come on board.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you again, Madam Mayor and honorable council members. This recommendation is to standardize our construction operation and to be mirrored with our county and our sister cities that provides a set standard of construction time that you have before you tonight. So staff recommend that you approve.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I have a motion.
Okay.
I move that we approve the ordinance to amend Chapter 10 of the City Code to establish hours for construction, demolition, excavation activities to permit it after 7 a.m. and before 7 p.m. on weekdays, after 8 a.m. and before 5 p.m. on Saturdays, and to be prohibited on Sunday, New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Christmas Day.
I second. He
Okay.
read exactly what she gave us last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see that again.
I just wanted to clarify the hours, because there was some discussion about the
Okay.
hours last
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. It's been properly moved and seconded, and I'll let Councilman Carroll read that again, please.
So it's what
He
she
did an
gave us
amazing
last
job.
week. So it's prohibited before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m. on weekdays. It's prohibited before 8 a.m. or after 5 p.m. on Saturdays. It's prohibited anytime on Sunday and at any time on New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Christmas Day.
Okay. Is there any discussion? You ready for the question? All in favor to approve the ordinance to amend Chapter 10 of the City Code to establish hours for construction, demolition, excavation activities, and that to make sure that's before 7 a.m. Not to be before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m. on weekdays, not before 8 a.m. or after 5 p.m. on Saturdays, and anytime on Sundays, or on New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. We didn't say Juneteenth. Why didn't we say Juneteenth? So, okay, I'm just.
Juneteenth is
wasn't
different
on
every.
there.
That's the hard part about it.
It wasn't on the.
It wasn't on the list, but I just brought it up. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Always add it, Madam Mayor.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, we would have to amend it.
Okay. I just brought it up. I didn't. It
Yeah.
wasn't in
It's a thought.
I think it's Bible.
Yeah.
If we
All,
could pick a
all
set
city
day.
holidays.
there. It's a city holiday.
Yep.
Oh, you know me. I will.
Jamie, would you like to amend your
Can we have an
Well,
amendment?
so if we can pick it, what is the day? Is June? What day is June?
It changes.
It's
the
June
fourth.
19th. But I mean, it's like
It's Juneteenth.
it's Juneteenth. It's like Martin Luther King Day.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah,
It
that
changes.
too.
Just say
That's true.
Juneteenth.
Yeah, I'll amend to add Juneteenth.
Okay. What's
Thank you.
Do we need to, from a procedural standpoint, do we need to go back? Because we just passed.
no?
we
Because
just
if
voted
you
for it,
we
right?
can amend it
We haven't voted.
and then we can add it back.
Okay, so
Gotcha.
I amend my motion to add Juneteenth on the list of the holidays that would be excluded from it.
And I second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we amend the motion to include Juneteenth. You ready? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All opposed say nay. Any abstentions? Okay. All right, now we'll go back to the main motion, which is to approve adopting an ordinance to amend Chapter 10 of the City Code to establish hours for construction, demolition, and excavation activities to be not before 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. after 7 p.m. on weekdays, not before 8 a.m. or after 5 p.m. on Saturdays, not on Sundays. New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Day, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas.
Second.
Okay?
We already said.
We already seconded it, just we going back.
We're just
We're just going back in there, because we had to add it.
Okay.
You had to make the amendment, made the amendment, we put it back in, and then we did that. Okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay? All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay? Motion passed. Thank you all. And so we'll move on to the next item, which is item C, to consider for approval the appointment of a new director of the Downtown Development Authority to fill the vacancy created by former director Krista Durant, removing her residency. And so, Ms. Cameron, I think we had two names, and so if you just want to kind of give a highlight of that, and then we'll move forward.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. On last time, we said that this, of course, is brought before you to satisfy statutory requirements for directors. And in that work session, Mr. Will Johnston name was brought up and as a primary and then there was a secondary, and then also there was Debbie Gaffman was a primary as well, and Nabayu was a secondary choice by Councilwoman Bell and Councilman Perkins, and Councilman Carroll also.
Okay.
Also with Councilwoman Bell and Councilman Perkins, as Johnson being a primary and Nabayu being a secondary.
Okay,
And it's before you tonight, those two candidates, or
Okay.
three candidates actually.
okay, so we have Will Johnston,
Yep.
and we have
Mr. Johnson removed
He
himself.
dropped out.
He dropped
he
out.
dropped out?
He removed himself by email like an hour before the meeting.
Okay, all right, cool. So then the next one was Debbie Gaffman.
No. What's his name?
Nabayu
Nabayu
was
or
the
something.
second one. I offered
Okay.
two.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
primary and
Number
a
two.
secondary.
Nabayu,
Yes.
but she was also, but
She was.
She did.
third.
she did, she
He
did.
was, but she
Yeah.
was third.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And so Nabayu, is that correct? Okay, okay. So we have Nabayu as primary, and then we have Gaffman, Debbie Gaffman.
I have a question in
Sure.
reference to. Miss Lisa, did you speak to Miss
Yes, ma'am.
Gaffman about her residency here in the city? I think that she was
Did I-
moving to Athens. Have we confirmed she's staying?
No, we have not. The last conversation that I had with her is that she was contemplating on moving to Athens with her children.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so it sounds like we had Nabayu, so, okay. I'll entertain a motion for that.
Yes.
Okay,
I move to approve Deborah Gassman for appointment to Clarkston's Downtown Development Authority.
okay, is there a second?
I like Debbie, but if she's moving,
Right.
see
I
how we
need to
can do it.
confirm seconds first.
What was reported is that she's considering moving. Am I
She
correct?
actually spoke highly of moving.
Okay,
I thought she
so
was
we have a motion on the floor,
Let the vote roll.
and so it needs to be seconded. If it's not second, after I say 3 times, then the motion's gone. So, is there a second? Is there a second? And is there a second? There is no second, so then the motion falls. So now, we'll move on to the next set name.
So I make a motion to appoint a new director of the Downtown Development Authority by the name of Nabayu.
Yes.
I don't want to mispronounce the last name. So,
know
Mr.
it.
Cameron, if you know how to pronounce
Ermias.
Armayas. For the Downtown Development Authority to fill the vacancy created by former director Krista Burrant, removing her residency.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, it has been properly moved and seconded to approve the appointment of a new director by you, and I'll let Ms. Cameron say the last one. His last name?
Ermias.
Ermias. For the Downtown Development Authority to fill the vacancy created by former director Krista Durant, removing her residency. Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, so we have, it's 3-2. Okay, and then it passed. So we'll move on to the next item, which is to consider the construction amount for the property at 736 Park North. And Mr. Quinn, can you kind of help walk us through that part?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Mayor. So we have we talked earlier during the Pariani design contract item about the council's desire to, before that process starts, establish a budget for the construction, which will then allow the city manager to value engineer the project with the Pariani design team, that so that the resulting plan can be constructed for the budgeted amount. Now, of course, this is not a contract with a general contractor, so we're dealing in estimates, but Mr. Pariani said that he intended to deliver an estimate that he felt confident in. Next thing to know is that our lease with the landlord includes a budget of $165,000 that the landlord will contribute to the build out of this. So, you know, in some cases, the tenant doesn't have to pay anything because the landlord's budget covers it. In this one, there's a major change in use, so it's always been estimated that, or anticipated rather, that the city would need to contribute some of its own funds. So what this resolution is intended to do is to let the city council establish how much the city manager and the design team have to work with, so to speak. So 165,000 plus however much you're comfortable with will give a total. There's two blanks in the resolution. One is for the amount that the city will contribute, and one is just by operation of math, that number plus 165.
Okay. And I want two things. I want to make sure, city manager, the amount I think that you had in there, I wanted to make sure you discuss that, and then we can just kind of, if we need to do any follow-up with Mr. Parani, to have him say a few words after that.
Okay, yes, ma'am. So the amount that we have for the construction is $275, and that's based upon the request from the council that we go back and try to reduce down as much as we thought we needed to the estimates. But I did want to get a point of clarity, Mayor, in regards to the resolution. I know that I have been asked to come up with two options. One option with the council chambers included in the new building, the other option with the council chambers / court not included in the building. So I did want to make a request to you and the council when you begin to make the discussions or consider the amount that you, for clarity's sake, that you give me at least two numbers based upon the two options that you requested of me. But again, to answer your question, reduced it down to $275.
Okay, and the 275 is inclusive of the 165?
It is not.
It is not.
So you're
And
saying
I'm
the
looking at
275
my
is-
sheet,
The 275 is only 110.
my latest sheet that I have.
Go, Councilwoman
And
Bell.
I didn't include the tenant improvement amount in that 275.
Okay, so it would be, so it's a total of 275, right? And so we have 165, so we'll only need 110. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh.
That's why I'm trying to make sure it's clear. 'cause
But these
see,
are only estimates. These are estimates. I want to
it
be
was
clear
not
that
clear as
these are
mud to me.
estimates.
So I just want to make sure. So you have an amount. That amount is the 165 that the landlord is providing us,
Yes.
plus from our city budget, 110,000. Is that
Right.
correct, or is it that we did not in this 275 account for the 165? That's all. I just want to make sure we're clear.
Well, I mean, we did not account for the 165. That was going to be in addition to the 275 that may be needed for, again, an estimate. And this estimate is only based upon the offices. It is not based upon adding the courtroom, which was a request of the council that we get two options, one with the courtroom and one without the courtroom.
Okay. So, Council, did you hear that? I got perplexed looking faces. Okay, so I'll let, and then you.
Ms. Tammy, we did ask you to break this number down, and you got it down to the 275. Do you feel that you basically could function with this 275, or do you, I mean, because the number was different. Are we making it go from nice to just suitable? I'm just being honest. I mean, because we don't want to limit the funds and then it's still you in the building. Or you can't get everything done. And I like
Yes,
the way
ma'am.
you didn't include the 165. That has nothing to do with us. Thank you.
Well, I mean, it's the bare minimum, Vice Mayor. I mean, we're trying to assure you all, that as staff, you can have 100% confidence in us that we're going to try to keep things at a bare minimum, but we want it to be a building that the public is going to, be proud of, and that you all are going to be proud of. So, I mean, the 275, again, it's a bare minimum.
Okay, thank
So-
you.
And so that is, again, not
Good to know.
inclusive of the landlords. It's what, okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
So what Mariani would be aiming at is up to 440,000.
Mm-hmm. 440,000.
If we approve the 275 plus the 165.
We don't have to approve the 165.
Right, but I'm saying if we added, so we could say we're only approving 110,000 in addition to what the landlord has done, and then that would stick us at the 275 number, right?
Right.
So, Councilman Perkins and Councilwoman Bell.
We may have, I just wanted to make sure, I think Councilman Carroll kind of highlighted this. I think it's easier to just look at it as total amounts. And so one total amount would be 275 out of pocket max. And then the other total amount is the 440, which you covered, Mr. Quinn. Again, total out of pocket max. And so I think it'd be helpful to frame our discussion around that, because I can see us maybe getting a little bit confused as we're navigating the numbers. And because of the numbers involved, and obviously we're all, understand our responsibility to the public as well, I think it's important we make sure we're clear moving forward so nobody has questions. So, but I believe you had a question.
Councilwoman Bell. And then I have Councilwoman Hood.
All right, Stephen. Explain, just give me a quick overview of this resolution and why we're doing it, and indicating the amount that we're getting from the property owner. Is it because we want to explicitly state and get that number down, that they're attributing this to us for the redesign and some of the construction, and it's an agreed upon thing? I just want to understand that piece.
The genesis of the resolution is the discomfort expressed by some council members with the total price tag, which was then also expressed by the mayor in her veto. So the idea behind this resolution is to let the city manager know on the front end, this is how much money is available to be spent on the city hall, new city hall renovation. Did that answer your question? Or, I mean, I think there might have been more, but I lost it.
No, I think you answered it. The purpose of the resolution, to get that solidified. So what you're saying is that city admin cannot exceed the 165,000 that's given by the property manager. By the property owner for the redesign. But I'm trying to figure out, how does that fall over into Mr. Pariani?
Sure. Okay. All right. I think I understand the question, and hopefully I can
Because his name
be
is in
more
the
helpful now.
resolution.
Right. Okay. So as Mr. Pariani described earlier,
Yeah.
this is his job has 3 phases.
Correct.
And built into that is a value engineering element. What that means is the architect design team working with the client, which is the city, to produce a design that can be executed within the client's budget. So if the city council does nothing here, then the city manager would work with the Pariani team to design what the city manager deems to be the best and most efficient design. If the city council acts and establishes a clear cap, then the city manager and the Pariani team will do the same thing, but they'll know that if their design is coming in over the cap, then they need to take something out to get it back under the cap. And so that kind of takes us full circle to the intent of the resolution, which is to let those interested parties that'll be doing the work for the city have a clear expectation on the front end.
So this gives us clear guidance of what his team will not exceed for the purpose of knowing where our budget is, but also gives the city direction on the cap.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. So it is a formality thing.
Yeah, I mean, the work could be done without this, but you might end up in a place where, this just makes everybody very clear, and so it won't go over. You know, Mr. Payani told us clearly that if he has a number not to go over, then he'll work
Stay
to
within that number.
get it under it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask?
Yes, and Councilwoman Hood.
Um,
And then
I want to reiterate what Mark has said. What we need to distinguish is what is the city's cap.
Right.
Because we know that whatever the city's cap is, and by that I mean city funds, there will be an additional $165,000. So, and I think this resolution shows that, because it speaks to the city's budget. So our budget, we start with $165,000 in the pot. How much more is the city willing to put into that pot out of our funds to get to the maximum amount that we would give to Mr. Pirano?
And so based on what has been given to us now, that total amount in the pot is $440,000.
And that is $440,000 made up of,
That is both the landlord,
which is the 165,
and then what was estimated bare bone in terms of the staff providing to the council, to us for an estimate.
and that number is 275.
275. And Councilwoman Bell?
All right, so just so I'm clear, because I want to know, okay? I want to be very clear on all things. We're adding the 275, which was the lowest cost estimate that city administration came up with. That excluded Mr. Pariani and the work, and it also excluded. Well, no, did the 275 include his work? No.
No. That's separate. That was the 108,000 on the prior agenda item. The 275 plus the 165, which equals 440,000, is what Ms. Sadler Jones told us would be the bare minimum to do an acceptable job on the project.
Well, see, this is why I was perplexed, because in my head I was adding the 165 plus the 108.
No.
The 108 is only for design, and what we're talking about now is construction,
The
which
extra
follows the
level
design.
services.
But
Got
it's
it.
relevant to the design so that they'll design
Okay.
a project that can be constructed for that
So I
amount.
have a question for the city manager. So you said the bare minimum. So forget about the source of the money for a second. Is the bare minimum number that you need to make the changes to make this building usable, is it 275 or is it 440?
It's the 275, and that is strictly for the offices. That doesn't include now the second option that I was asked to do, was to possibly get a cost to include the council chamber / court.
Okay, and then so that's my other question. If we wanted to do the council chamber / court, how much would that increase?
Well, I won't know that until we work with Mr. Pariani and his team. I just don't know, because that is really more of a redesign of the building. The original plan was to basically add doors and walls for security reasons, but adding a whole new design because we're going to probably end up losing some offices if we have to do a council chambers that fits, 100 people.
This one's only 75, right?
Yeah, we need 100.
We don't need 100 people. We don't, because right now it's 75 in here. So.
Right. Well, but this court chambers was built, many years ago, Mayor. We were just kind of taking into consideration maybe modernizing it a little bit more than what we have at our current location.
Okay. Councilwoman Bell.
So I'm just going back to the resolution. In the blanks, if we stay with what is minimally needed, that blank should say 275.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because the in addition to is in parentheses with the money that the property manager is the property owner will give us. Is that correct?
Honestly, I'm a little confused now because we've heard it both ways.
Thank you for that clarification. And so what I'm just trying to make sure that bare minimum is 275. That did not include the 165.
That did not include the 165, Mayor, because
Okay.
we were gonna maybe use the 165 toward the construction. It says tenant improvement, so that if we have to, we may have to use it towards other things, security or cameras. But we just have that to use, toward tenant improvements overall.
Okay, so for council discussion, we shouldn't even bring up the 265 based on what you're saying. 165. Is that correct?
165.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So for us
Yes.
up here on the dais, don't even think about the 165 at all when you think about those slots. Because all I'm hearing is 265 because she may need to use the 165 for some other things that were TBD.
Well, the 165 can only be used to build out this space.
Right.
Right? So it sounds like what Tammy's telling us is that she needs at least another 110,000.
But what she's saying
No.
no.
Yeah. She's saying, if you're going to give me something, give it to me, and I'll do what I have to do with the 165. If we're going to control the budget. Am I correct, Ms. Jones?
But
She's not telling
Yes,
us to
I mean, as-
subtract from the 275 and put a number somewhere. Right, that's not, that's what I said in the beginning. We should not even touch the 165 because that has nothing to do with us. We're trying to figure out what number the city of Clarkston is going to put in this blank spot, not even looking at the 165.
Well, I got confused because y'all
Yeah,
added
I
and
get
said
it.
for something. So then I didn't know where we were going.
Right.
Well,
So we got it.
Somebody right. So I think we're all okay. Let's make sure we all on the same page. 165 is out of the question. Don't even put it in your mind. Don't even think about it. It doesn't exist for us up here.
Right.
Okay.
But it
So
does-
265.
275.
275
It's what it'll take.
is what she has in terms of what Mr. Pirani is going to do. Now, Mr. Quinn, to your facial expression, is that some of the other things in terms of build out, the staff would be using that for other things that are coming up outside of what Mr. Pirani has in his construction design document. Am I saying that correctly, Ms. City Manager?
Yes. So originally, we provided a cost of $500,000. I think that gave some sticker shock. So we brought that down to 275. The 275, that would be for like demolition, replacement of the floors, the break room area, some of the server room area, to name a few things, the bathroom, making some adjustments to the single bathrooms. So that's how we came up with the 275.
Okay. All right. So with that, if let's say, for example, for you to do the redesign and add the Part B, which we asked you to do, in terms of the city council court chambers. And if we said, for example, for that component of it not to be more than, because that would be a redesign, and maybe Mr. Pirani could maybe give us some more insight, and that might help us out with that piece of it. So we already kind of, the staff has provided us what it would look like in terms of bare minimum. They gave us a number. We came back to them because we wanted to make sure, as an option, to see what it would look like instead of us having council meetings in court here and then having the court clerk staff having to come back and forth, what that cost would look to take maybe one of those larger rooms that we have in terms of identifying as the community room and making it where the community could go straight through there and utilize that space for the court. So that kind of maybe help paint the picture.
Gotcha. So I will be unable to give you exact figures now, but one of the ways that in the commercial real estate world that these conversations get framed around is something called cost per square foot. That essentially allows you to take the value of the construction and divide it by the total square footage of the space to give you a rough estimate of what each individual task will cost. And so in the design phase for the 108,000 that's approved, we currently have a design process and language that will take us through the entire process and get you guys the CDs that you need, the construction documents. If you guys would like to say, hey, we want to include this type of environment in the new space, then essentially what that would involve is us doing some additional engineering and design to include these areas in the new building, and then we would factor in the cost. One thing that there's been a lot of back and forth that I just want to clarify is that the and this may be for the city attorney, but the landlord, the lease that you guys are proposing to sign generally do have some specific clauses about what the tenant improvement allowance can be used for. And I've done a couple hundred leases in the last few years, and majority of those times those TI dollars are tied to some type of physical asset that improves the building itself and not things that are removable from the building like furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So just be mindful of that the TI dollars, the 165, most likely is tied to construction and not some other outside variable.
Definitely agree.
And in terms of this specific lease, the rentable square foot, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it's roughly 27,000 square feet. And so what I would urge you guys to do in your budgeting, and you don't have to determine the budget today, maybe you do, maybe you don't, I'm not sure about procedurally, but when you're thinking about these budget items, you definitely want to consider the cost per square foot. And so whatever that value is that you guys tie to the construction, it would be good to divide that by the total square footage, and that'll give you, hey, we got $16 a square foot to do construction, we got $11, we got $9, whatever that value may be. And with that value, you can really do a lot more in terms of budget for what you guys can determine what the budget will be. And so, for example, a very, very light carpet and paint renovation would be $6-7 a foot. If you guys are doing a new floor plan and all of the infrastructure of the building exists already, you can do a $35 a square foot renovation. If you're going to rip everything down and go back with everything new, it's going to be $65. And if you're going to do everything brand new plus Class A finishes plus a surgery center, it's going to be $120. And so that's how the structure of the pricing works. And so it sounds like based on the $165,000 that the landlord is providing you guys, that's about like $6.15 a foot. So that's pretty minimal in terms of what they're contributing to your construction build out. That's really going to get you. It's the number itself, $165,000, seems like a large number, and it is a large number. But when you displace that over 27,000 square feet, it becomes very, very small. So just keep that in mind. The size of the building is much more relative than maybe some people are giving credence to.
Okay. And if since we've agreed to the contract, but we've talked about this second component to it, if we didn't vote on this tonight, and let's say for you to move forward, because what I want to make sure is that we're pretty clear, all of us, when would you need that number? When would you need, like, for you to do what you needed to do, when would you need that number?
Yeah, so, sooner than later would be better.
Okay.
But I also know that there's some flow of information that needs to happen in terms of issuing a contract, a purchase order, insurance requirements, bonding, and all that stuff. So there is some time for those items to happen, and in that next week or two, that'll be a good conversation for you guys to kind of dial in. And I think, I'm all for making forward progress, but this might be one of the things that you guys want to take a step back and have a further discussion around. Make sure you have your ducks in a row before setting a figure, because when we get that figure, we're going to go exactly to that. And I don't want people to be unhappy with the final product and say, hey, we undertook this big project, moving all these people, staff relocation, it's a big headache, and when we get into the place that we're going, it's not exactly what we wanted and we're not really happy. And so that's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is we knock it out of the park and everyone loves it, and that's what we're going to try to do. But yeah, part of that is going to be defining that budget succinctly early on in the project, and then letting the professional engineers and architects and contractors do what they need to do to get there.
Okay. So council,
Can I ask a question of Mr.
Yes.
Pariani? The flat fee design contract that we've agreed to, if the city wanted to put a chambers like this in that space, would the contract that we've already approved include that work, or would you have a change order because of that nature?
That would be somewhat of a gray area, and the reason is because it really depends on the size of the request you guys are asking for. So, for example, if it was something like, hey, we know we're going to do new offices and we're going to do a new break room and so on and so forth, then we want to move the doors over here, that's not going to do anything. But if you come and said, hey, this was initially supposed to be an office space, and now we're going to have a judicial system. We need to have a special parking lot. We need to have a drive-through for whatever reason. We need to have a drug testing area for whatever reason. That would substantially change the scope, and that would result in an ad services cost. So it really depends on the scope and the size of the request.
Right.
But within reason, we are not. Our goal is not to nickel and dime anybody. Our goal is to do a good job and have a long-term relationship. So our goal is to keep everything into that 108 with the not to exceed. And we understand that the city is a steward of taxpayer funds, and so that we calculate that into our decision making as well.
Okay. And that was your question? Okay. And so council, if you don't mind, I know staff would have to have a conversation with Mr. Pirani and their team to kind of even for that additional piece for the chambers, to make sure in terms of for a approximate estimate. Is that okay for us to maybe have a special call meeting for us to do this resolution, or based on this conversation?
We need to ask Stephen, because we pushed this back a month now.
Well, when we sign the lease, which should happen imminently, we're going to have 60 days to deliver some plans to them. Now, if they see that we're getting close, I expect that they would work with us. But what I think I'm hearing is they can get started without this budget cap as long as we let them know within the next week or two.
Right.
Right, so we could, I think it sounds from what I'm hearing from everybody that could work. And if I recall, don't we already have a special meeting called?
On the 18th.
So that's about 2 weeks from today. Would that be too late to learn the budget? I mean, the other thing you can do is just, we have an idea here, right? So they can start aiming at 275,000 and then get on the 19th the firm number.
Right. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Mr. Pirani, the city manager stated that right now she has no desire to put the chambers in the new building. But if we wanted to see what that looked like, could we start with that idea of putting the chambers in the building? Or if we changed it later, how would that look? If you gave her a breakdown of what you could do, and then later we wanted to see the chambers over there, what happens then?
So that's a great question, and the best way that I can guide you guys in your decision-making process is going to be around the idea that the decisions you make early on at the beginning of the project are the decisions that you're going to want to stick to until it is substantially complete. And the reason is because it sounds very, very simple. Hey, you know, we like the Chambers idea, we don't like the Chambers idea, maybe we take it, maybe we don't. And you know, that was a 5-second sentence I just said, but in the background that would be 4 weeks of engineering and design and architecturals and life safety engineering and a lot of man hours. And so the best, most efficient, cost-efficient way to do this is to develop the program very early and say, hey, we don't want the chambers over there, or we do want the chambers over there. Make that decision and stick to it. And when you stick to it, because if you know, we're 4 weeks into an 8-week project and you come back and say, hey, psych, we want to change this, we're not going back a week, we're going back to the first day of the project and starting over. And so that we really don't. Hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of the process. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Hood.
Yes. I think what we're looking at is
Your mic's not on.
Thank you. 2 sets of numbers, one with the chambers and one without the chambers. And for them to be able to, and one is without the chambers needs plans, and we should know very shortly if we're going to do with the chambers after there's a discussion. So, and I think we're going to have to consider the 165,000 because it sounds like it is restricted to this purpose. So if our number is minimum, what would come out of the city budget, 275,000, and for a total amount, including the landlord part of 165,000, then the total would be 440,000, without making the point that this is without the council chambers over there, because we could get confused about these numbers. And they would possibly go up depending on what the decision is on the council chambers.
Councilwoman Bell.
2 things I need to make a decision. One, I need Stephen to go back and look at the landlord contribution and how we can use it. 2, I also need for us to make a decision if we want the design to include the chambers or not. I'm not going back and forth with this decision.
The first part right now.
Okay.
It's strictly limited to building out physical, non-removable aspects of the building, which would include new walls, new door, new window, new paint, new carpet, but it would not include furniture. It would not include just filling in our budget in other places, but that's okay because we know it's going to cost at least 165.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. So then that's part 1. Part 2, council. Do you or do you not want to have the council chambers in the new building?
I would like to have the chambers in the new building. This one
Can-
needs work.
I would like to have like a bare bones chambers. in the
Right.
building.
Like a bunch of chairs.
Like chairs, tables, mics, that's it. there's like a big conference room space where I think that's all that's really needed. I don't think we need to reconstruct this wooden thing like that.
Right. So, Councilman Perkins?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Two things. One reminder, we do have a resolution that Mr. Quinn drafted that does include the language for the 165. And so I've been wanting to bring us back to that and make sure that that is considered to all the points that you brought up. Again, I would say, pretty agnostic as to whether or not we move the council chambers over there or not. I'm leaning towards definitely not doing anything super invasive because it was not a part of the conversation early on, it sounds like. And I think we are already pretty late in the game in terms of making changes of that nature, as Mr. Priani, and Mr. Priani spoke to the consequences of changing things late in the game. So ultimately, I'm okay either way. On this, I would recommend that we try and make a decision on this, possibly even before the 2-week period. I think my question would be, what information do we need to have? What's the barrier between where we are right now from an information, reflection standpoint, and where we need to be to vote on this and give everyone a green light, particularly in light of the 60-day deadline that we have?
Right. And Councilwoman Bell, you want to wait till Chief says something?
No, I'll go now and then, Chief. Okay, you go. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm in favor of us not even having to do a build out of the chamber. To y'all point, you all are saying the same thing. We want the bare minimum. We just want a space that we can hold a meeting. We've held meetings on this floor right here with a outdoor table and the residents sitting down. So we don't need no design, in my opinion. Okay, I'm just one second. Okay, but I don't think that would cost us any more to put some more chairs, because they're the things we can't take with us no way. And we got chairs, right, Chief? Somebody tell me we got chairs. We got chairs. So I'm in favor for us to do what is already planned to do, and no more build out or design. We ain't staying there forever, y'all.
Right.
And we just gonna add the chairs, and we can add a table, a cocktail table, and be sitting there and make our decisions.
Right. I mean, I think the only other thing was making sure that there was a pathway to be able to go and not interfere with the area that staff had. I think that was the only thing, because otherwise there is a community room. There's a whole community room. The only thing was just to make sure where the staff was, the bathroom was an area, and then, because that was a discussion that we had early on about that, early. So, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The only thing I would like to add is, Jamie, to your comment about make it bare bones, remember court's going to be held in there. We need to make sure it's not just bare minimum, that we have the security that needs to be in that courtroom. That's all.
Okay. What different security other than making sure we had the hall like we have now? We got a hallway now. And so if people are coming down the hallway and we have that security feature there, what additional will we need to make it secure?
Well, it would be something that I'd need to look into and get with the general contractor and just make sure that everybody's safe that's going to be in there. Just not some tables and chairs. And
Right.
Well, one thing I would say, every courtroom that I've been in has the judge on a elevated and removed place. And I think that security is one element of that. And so if it's just a big room with folding chairs, then I don't, that doesn't seem to make the judge very secure.
Right. Okay. So.
But I got a question. Is that a design build out? Oh, wait, who would? Tammy. Who? Tammy.
Oh, Miss.
Go ahead.
City Manager. I'm sorry, I didn't see
Thank you, Mayor. Well, thank you, Councilmember Bell. Yes, I was going to echo what Stephen said. Just other places where I've worked with the council chambers, there was a secure access area for the judge to enter and exit the courtroom without that person having to go through the public entrance areas.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
So.
But my question is still, as it stands, is that a design thing that needs to be done? That seems like a door or some type of safety measure that Chief or Public Works can recommend. I I don't know.
It's
I'm
a
asking.
design. It's part of the design.
Part of the design.
They have to
It's
have
a
an extra door in the
design when
back.
you're talking
It's like most courthouses
security.
do have that, like Steven said, where there
Mm-hmm.
is an elevated platform, which is probably just behind that, and then the design element is just having a door where the judge can enter next without having to interact with the people that are
Right.
on.
Right.
All right.
Okay. So, council, from a vote, I just want to make sure, because then we can move forward with this. Council chambers? No council chambers. Court chambers?
No council chambers.
Yes? No?
I mean,
Because I guess this is the question I have. If you put the design in for the court chambers, that's something maybe that from next year we could add.
Yeah, so, the primary purpose of the design is to limit the liability of the city.
Okay.
And when I say that, it sounds kind of like a nebulous idea, but the reason that you do the design is so you can ensure ADA compliance, we can ensure that no one's being discriminated against when it comes to federal regulation, we can ensure that if there's a fire or an emergency, that people can get out in a timely manner. And so if you just plop in a court chambers, that's fine, and we can design all the other aspects around that. And then if you didn't want to build it, that's okay. Maybe you come back in 6 months, 10 months and do it then. But kind of getting back into that, making changes, which is kind of counterproductive. So I think the best, so what you guys are doing right now is technically called a programming session, and that would be where we determine the owner's requirements. And this is actually something that's super commonly done with a registered architect, interior designer, and contractor as part of the meeting. And the reason is because you guys may say, hey, we don't know if we need this or not, but we know that we have 17 people. We have to put, 32 people in the back of house. We got estimated, people coming in off the street for business, 16 people a day, or whatever those values may be. And then from there, we can do a space plan and say, okay, based on the volume of people that you guys are servicing or talking to, maybe you do need it, or you guys are really under that limit and you can get away with something that's more bare bones. And so we can kind of discuss that in a programming sense early, like as soon as the design contract is released, that would be the first thing that happens. And at that point, Ms. Bell, to your notion, is it design, is it construction, or can it just be some tables and chairs? Usually during the design process, we also plan out the furniture and we put it schematically on the drawing. And the reason for that is because maybe, that table requires power. And that's something that we maybe not have thought about. And so when we lay out all that furniture, we understand, okay, this does require power, and maybe, we need to have some clearance because the court clerk is going to use a trolley to take her papers around, and so that has to be open. And so a lot of different aspects, but very, very granular stuff. But I think that would be super beneficial to be part of the programming of what you guys are talking about now. So
I'm ready.
You ready?
Yeah.
Question for Ms. Tammy before we do that.
Okay.
Ms. Tammy, can you explain to me one more time why you felt that this would be better to stay? I think we're forgetting why you made the recommendation to leave court here. Can you let us hear that one more time?
Well, it really, Vice Mayor, just came down to dollars and cents, the cost. I mean, I knew that the bare minimum changes that we were expecting to make that have to do with the security measures would only be done. I did not think that we were going to move the court over there. We would just remain where we are. Also, there's an opportunity here as we discussed, and I put in a timeline for you guys, year 1, year 2, the things that we're going to be doing as far as planning for a new city hall / police department and courtroom. I mean, that would give us an opportunity to do that as well. But from the very get-go, I had not planned to move the council or the court to the new building just because I knew it would probably be an increased cost to the city to do that.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
what about the safety of the clerks? Because that's my only other concern, is that I'm concerned about the clerks having to go from one building to the next, because again, all the police are going to be gone from here. And then if we have court, then we'd have to have the police to be here versus that's a concern. I'm just bringing that point up because that was one of the concerns that I brought up, is that now our clerk staff is going to have to transport all of that stuff, and then someone's going to have to be here to collect funds if they're doing court after court. Is that correct too?
Yes, and I mean, it would remain the way it is now, Mayor, except I will definitely have to make changes to the way our staff collects money, because from my understanding now, they are collecting money. No, I hate to admit it, but I'm being told that this has been the case for a long time in the lobby area. And so we're definitely going to have to probably do an improvement from a security standpoint to make sure that they are collecting money behind the secure area that's in the lobby now.
Okay. So council, if you want to keep the design bare minimum and not include the chambers, so be your pleasure. But I just brought up that point, in terms of keeping it here versus taking it to the new building. So we can just keep the design bare minimum, because you heard the explanation from the city manager, or we can include it.
I think Jamie has a question.
Yes,
One
Councilman.
other point in favor of including it, I think, is that it gives the option of eventually tearing down this building and using this site to build a permanent city hall in the future. That would be larger and more stories. So if we take everything out, then that creates that option over the next 5 years. Or if we don't take everything out, then we don't have that option.
Yay or nay?
Yay for me. I'll take the chambers.
Yeah.
Yay?
Tomorrow.
Yay? No yay?
I think I need to see the kind of cost benefit analysis. Again, we're kind of talking about sort of general ideas. And so
Okay.
I think
So if we
it comes
do
down to
that-
the whole thing that got us to this
Special call
point.
meeting in like a week, you think?
Yeah, I'll be okay with the special call. But I
Okay,
think-
that's what, that,
Yeah.
yes.
Whether that's
Councilwoman
stacking it
Bell?
onto the
So this is what I'll say. Now, we had an extensive conversation in regards to what we're going to do with the other two properties and then transitioning over there. If we are occupying a space and then occupying another space, guess what? There's no motion or movement in this space. We have asked for plans. We have asked what we're going to do with these, because we're also trying to make something to eventually move to something bigger. Now, we hold on to both of them. We putting ourselves in a terrible situation long term. I don't want to go back to here again. We have the same discussion about what are we doing with this space over there, and then they transition over there. Because, and we asked them for plans, y'all. We said, hey, what are the plans for these two? Well, there ain't going to be no plan for this one if we're still occupying this space and still over there. And that's just the reality.
So to your statement, the reality of us being in the new building and having everything in terms of court.
Here's
Yes.
my thought. This is a big change at the last minute. I think if we took a pause, got a little bit more information, and had a work session, a special called meeting within a week, not waiting to the 18th, so that I have questions. And at this point, I'm not convinced that moving this over there is the right decision. But I would like some more information about it.
So if we had a special call meeting, Councilwoman Hood, what would you need in order to make that decision so that we have everything you need in place?
I think I would like Chief to go over there and take a look at the space where it's being considered, and just give her opinion of whether this is doable, because security is a big issue. And access, we've already heard questions about access. We'll have to have the electronics transferred over there, so on and so forth. If security is a concern, the alternative is having an officer here for security purposes when the clerk comes over, that sort of thing, and then on balance based decide that way. And the security of not only the court, but other people in the building. So I would like that kind of information. I don't know if we need to have the court clerk also look at that space with the idea in mind that it might be a court, because there's a lot about it that we don't know personally.
Okay. Councilman Perkins.
So just since I'm uncomfortable with this as well, I want to make sure I'm clear. I think where I'm uncomfortable with it is, again, the thing that has delayed this up to this point has been concerns about budgets, project going out of scope, cost overruns. And so what we're doing is a little bit counter to all the things we just said we were concerned about, which is to add a massive, potentially massive, I don't know if it's massive or not, change order to our initial project scope. So that's where I'm concerned about it. I think all the points are valid, but again, we're about to sign a lease. And so now at this point, we're about to put ink on paper that commits us to a finite timeline, and we're changing, the design of that space in a pretty fundamental way, outside the bounds of even our design contract and everything else. So there's a lot of unknowns related to that where we could experience cost overruns. At the end of the day, we could say, these are worth it. To Councilwoman Bell's point, it does free up the space. So there's nothing here. We can do whatever we want with it. I'm not sure, again, because we're still dealing with some, we're not dealing with specifics as to would it be realistic to do this in phases. We go ahead and move most things over there, and then, we move the rest of the staff later. So my recommendation is that we pick a date next week where we can have a more detailed discussion on this, and defer this motion to that date, but that we not delay it any further.
Right.
Again, my what I would be ready to vote on tonight is let's not move the chambers, and let's just move forward with the plan as it's developed over the last 8 months. But since the rest of the council seems to be thinking we want to modify it, our recommendation is we do that post haste.
I'm fine with just doing it next Tuesday.
I have to check my schedule.
Now check your schedule.
Or we don't have to set it right now.
Okay. Councilwoman Bell.
I ain't gonna say no more after this.
Because this is it.
Because listen, we have two things that we are competing that we're saying we want. We want a low cost budget and design out of a building, and then we also want to utilize this space to figure out who can occupy in our absence, because it needs all these updates, and that we also have safety concerns over here. So I think y'all are doing this. And I get the cost is a concern. It's a concern for all of us, right? That, we have a fiduciary responsibility. But either we stay in this space and occupy both space, and then we don't talk about what we're going to do with either one of them. And we hold that in with the long-term plan of the same term of the lease. So we're still going to be occupying the space. We're not going to reduce any costs. Long-term, y'all. We still got to pay for lights and water, and people going to be coming in and out of this building. Either that, or we go over there all together, and then we figure out what is the plan for the next two bills. That is what's on the table, because we're still going to spend money. We're not saving anything by just transitioning fully over there and still halfway over here, is what I'm saying. But I understand y'all points. Okay?
Yeah. Yep. And so that, again, if you don't want to move, yes, you got a motion?
I got a motion.
Okay.
I'm there.
Okay.
But no, I can respect everybody else's decision, but it's not that hard for me. We know what $275,000 is going to get us. We know what we want. So we got to up the number a bit. And everybody goes. This building is free. Start your planning and whatever you want to do with the building. I'm okay with it.
I'd rather just table it than...
I can respect that as well.
Right. Because the number that you're coming up with is where you're getting the number. Where is it based on?
It's her $275K.
But that's
the bare minimum, not even touching the 165. Now, That's not putting the, no, if we're gonna add the chambers, we can add something to it. We don't know the number, but we can still add something to it and respect his report and see if we
Okay.
can make it happen.
Okay.
It's already a part of the planning phase.
Okay, so, council, as far as moving forward with this, we have a budget that's based on 275, just without the chambers in it. And we're gonna keep this building regardless, because basically, we have no other choice with this building. We have to keep it. So if you want us still from now until for the next 5 years, have us to meet in here, because that's what we have a budget for, and we move forward with what the city manager has presented in terms of us. That's your option. That we just go with the 275.
I would rather table it and find out how much it would be to move it. And then
How are you gonna
then-
find out?
Well, I think in a week we may have a better estimate of what it would be.
How? Reiterate.
Well, I think if we spend that week talking to Mr. Periani and, talking about options, I think we may at least be able to get a ballpark of, say, it's this much to move the chambers. So then.
In a week?
Let him talk.
So we could the actual we don't trying to think about the best way to get this information across to you guys. We don't make up the prices, so it's all based on quantities and linear feet of walls and flooring and all those kind of things. And so that's just math, and we can do that. I can do that on a calculator. And take me a couple hours to knock it out if I have some rough idea of what you guys are looking for. And so that's really not a difficult exercise for me to do. Just a little bit of spreadsheet and some Excel, and we can get it knocked out. But yeah, so I think that's fine. If you guys would like some assistance with that, I'd be happy to help.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that within your contract that we just initiated or outside?
It's not, but it's not something that we're, like I said, we're not particularly interested in nickel and diamond. You guys, we're trying to help and make sure this
Thank
thing,
Okay.
especially if it sounds like this is a critical decision for y'all's medium-term future. So if I can come in and hang out for an hour or two at a meeting and do some math for you, then that's perfectly fine.
Okay, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Councilman Perkins.
And just to clarify, I think, my concern is just making sure, again, I did not walk through that space with a council chamber in mind. And so I think when we're starting to think through security, flow of traffic, access to all these questions that have been brought up, I think are legitimate. And so if we've got those drawings set up where it's hey, conceptually, we're going to put a door here, it's those questions that I think can make this, it could come down to feasibility even too.
Right.
So those are questions that I think I'd like to just have a little bit more of a firmer grasp on before voting on, setting any kind of contract amount. I don't need it, down to the cent. But
Right.
if it's not feasible and we just voted on it, then okay, well, where does that place us? So I think that's my concern. I suggest, I don't know, Wednesday night, Tuesday night, we're ready to do this. I happy to make a motion to,
Right.
defer to a date to be determined over email, or we can go ahead and set a date tonight, next week. I don't know if
Okay.
anyone.
You got to check your schedule? Okay, so we can defer it to next week, and we'll decide on the date. And in the meantime, we can have Mr. Pirani to take a look, see what it looks like in terms of that amount. You can let us know, then we can go from there and say yay or nay, and that's it. Does that work? Yes.
And having the chief and the court clerk assist with that estimate from the standpoint of what would need to be done to change the community room to the court and council chambers.
So I think Miss Keisha is nodding her head as she's part of that coordination part, so she's got that covered, Miss Dixon. Okay. And Miss Councilwoman Bell?
I just wanted us to make sure that we set a date for when we're gonna set the date.
Mhm.
It's for public awareness, but also for letting the public know.
Right.
I don't want to wait until Friday to set the date, and then
So
And
can,
then also, I had a question for Mr. Pariani. How long would you need realistically? I know you have other projects. I'm assuming.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, you gotta
yeah, I got mine.
How long would I need to give you guys a rough order of magnitude on the construction costs for adding the chambers into the new space? I can do that in, a few days, 4 or 5 days. Probably I can get that knocked out, or probably 4 days it would take me to get you something that you could really chew on and, be accurate.
Okay. So that looks like, if you had 4 days, that would be like maybe the 13th, July the 13th.
July, June.
I mean, June, Lord, I'm trying.
The 13th. The day before.
Today's the 4th, so
First, it needs to have a meeting to get the details.
So you need more than 4 days.
Yeah.
You tell us what you need.
No,
They'll
I got
give
you.
you
I got
dates,
you.
okay?
So what I need is I need y'all to really just high level. I don't need a ton of information because at the end of the day, no disrespect, but this isn't the first time somebody built a courthouse. Like it's
Right.
been done. It's been done. So, we can find out what that costs and get that to you. So really just how many people do you want to accommodate in the new facility, and that's all you need.
75.
Everything else I can figure out. I don't really need much more than that information.
75. That's what
Okay.
we got now.
That's fine. We can run with
75, that's it.
okay.
that. Sure.
Okay. So would you like a date of either everybody kind of look at either the 12th, Okay. You won't be here? Okay. All right, so everyone, if you can look at your calendars, and then we'll send a note out tomorrow based on everybody's schedule. So if you're free, either, would the 10th work for you, either the 10th or?
The 10th, the 11th would be better than the 10th, but
Okay.
yeah, the 11th would be appropriate.
Okay. So everybody with the 11th work with you?
I'll have to check.
Okay, so you'll check your schedule? Okay.
check it
So
tonight.
tentatively, can we just say the 11th and, yes?
Oh, sorry, I was waiting to. I have a motion I can make
Right.
whenever you're ready.
Okay,
Just to move it forward.
she has to check though, yeah. Okay,
I move that we defer the agenda item to consider a resolution by the Clarkston City Council to establish a construction build-out budget for the new city administrative space to be located at 763 Park South to a date to be determined no later than 5 p.m. on Thursday, June 6th.
okay. Is there a second?
No later.
No, Lennon.
No later than Thursday, June 6th at 5 p.m. That's how long we'll need to determine a date
Yeah.
by
so we
5
can-
p.m. on
Oh,
Thursday.
we will determine that.
Right, we'll
Thank
come
you.
up with a date. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that Councilman Perkins, restate your motion.
I move that we postpone discussion, or postpone the agenda item to consider a resolution by the Clarkston City Council to establish a construction build-out budget for the new city administrative space to be located at 736 Park North to a date to be determined no later than 5 p.m. on Thursday, June 6th.
Okay, any discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Are you ready to adjourn?
Yes, I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.